Mike has started recording. Seth, you're up.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Osquery Office Hours on this December 8th. It's chilly here in Boston. Mike's on the beach, and, don't know about the rest of you, but welcome. First chunk is any announcements or highlights since the last meeting. Okay. Next one is a space for community members to bring questions, issues, PRs up. This is really trying to carve out time for the people who aren't the usuals. So even though I don't see anyone here, we'll still pause for a moment.
What kinds of things have people brought up in issues or complained about recently? They may not come to office hours, but I feel like maybe there might be some requests out there that we've heard.
I don't know that I've seen any, but I don't know that I'm watching. I see a lot of things that remain like very basic looking fleet requests, which may eventually funnel into what Zach is doing now. But I feel like for as long as I've been watching Osquery, there's been this like background churn of people wanting simpler and free open source fleet management that magically does everything perfectly that they don't have to figure out how to use. And like you see this in the endless stream of like, how do I send JSON to Fleet? And like, it didn't just work out of the box. And I don't know that that's somewhere that we as a project can pick up, because I feel like Osquery is really a piece of a whole.
Maybe deployment guides are not good enough.
Deployment guides are all for Osquery, not for the fleet management portion. Like Osquery is only half of what you really need to use it as a product.
Yeah, maybe deployment guides
Well,
should point to some of that.
And fleet management is only another half of something that's like 1.5 total. Because I think the third half is figuring out what to actually do once you've got Osquery deployed and you've got Osquery talking to your fleet manager. There's still missing pieces there. And I guess I would say that we're working on our documentation to make it better, and hopefully more folks will be able to at least get through those first parts, and then we can kind of move on to tackling the what do I do with this aspect. And I think that what do I do with this from a high level is something that the Osquery projects and community could certainly address more, in my eyes. And then, how do I actually achieve that is maybe something more for like, us as an open source fleet manager, or, us being Fleet as an open source fleet manager for Osquery, helping people understand how to actually achieve that.
I would agree with that. I think you're right. I think we could probably do more to help answer the question of what is Osquery and what is the ecosystem that Osquery fits into, and kind of highlighting the bits that are not Osquery.
It will be also interesting to know what the user sees first when, I don't know, he's searching for Osquery, in the sense that is he coming directly to the Slack, he is going to the website, he is looking directly on the wiki, because we can have, I think, maybe kind of on all those places, high-level overview of what an ideal setup is, showing that Osquery is not always the only piece in the picture. It can be in some specific cases, but yeah, as you were saying, most of the time is not.
I mean, maybe we could like write up some use cases and put them on the website.
Yeah, I think so. So I don't have a specific suggestion, in the sense that I would. I mean, one thing I would have liked is having those kind of statistics to know where new people come from and go and what they look at. maybe I would say even the main page of the Osquery website should, I don't know, show a simple drawing picture to explain where Osquery fits normally.
I would agree with that. I have an architectural diagram in my head that I've never written out, and I think that would go a long way to helping people understand it all.
Does I don't have read the docs admin access, but would if someone did, would they see metrics on how many pages are accessed, what are the popular ones, that kind of thing?
I do. Let me remember how to log into that. And were you going to say something?
Yeah, I guess if Ben has a comment, because we kind of skipped past the community questions.
Sorry, I was trying to figure out the headphone situation. So just kind of, I came in a little late to the discussion, but it sounded like you guys are talking about how to get people more involved with how to use Osquery and understanding how it's useful. Is that correct?
I'd say, Mike asked if there were any questions we frequently saw come up, and the one that I always see come up is kind of just general confusion about what Osquery is and how it fits into a larger ecosystem. Like a lot of the time, people will start using Osquery and then they'll be surprised that there's no log aggregation.
Yeah. I guess my one comment would be from the blog side of things. A lot of people focus on how to set up Osquery and then like a fleet manager and then how to log, but they never show the after parts of that of like, let's set up queries to find this or that, or let's go look for some type of malicious activity and stuff like that. And I find that's usually the missing component of a lot of blog posts. So I think that maybe we can try and drive people to show this is how you set it up, but this is also how you use it, because that's how I do blogging and people find that really useful. So I think that's really a suggestion to anyone out there who's looking to blog about Osquery. That would be a really good thing.
I think that's also very in line with Zach's comment about the third half, which is once you have it all running, what do you do with it? What queries do you run?
So I actually have it coming down the pipeline the next couple of months. I did a red team exercise, and then I'll be using Osquery to actually hunt that red team exercise. So that'll kind of be that third component, but we're a couple months off from me actually finalizing that. But I think that'll be a good resource, hopefully, to get things started.
That's pretty cool to see.
Yeah.
Okay, Mike, I do see a little bit of analytics on Read the Docs. I don't know if there is a specific question you have.
So I was just thinking if there were clearly more popular pages, or as Stefano was asking, if there were like inbound links or refers.
So I'm trying to read it and figure out how to put it into the minutes.
Yeah, I mean,
so
sorry.
In terms of general page analytics, the traffic analytics looks pretty boring. Index.html has most of the hits, and then things like deployment, configuration, installation. So that's kind of what I'd expect. That doesn't seem very remarkable to me. Search analytics says that there are no data.
Well, the piece that we do know is right in line with what we thought, which is people want to know how to deploy.
But I mean, not necessarily want to know how to deploy, but like anytime I'm trying to remember some bit of configuration syntax, I Google it and get the Osquery docs and look at the deployment docs. So like they're the reference.
Yeah, like Google might be doing a little bit of personalization if they keep sending us to Osquery, because we come from there, so therefore they send us back there. But I see it often when I'm Googling like an API, system API, and the top result is the Osquery code base. And I'm like, no, I want to know how other people do it.
So Mike, can you clarify when you say like deployment, are you talking about like using something like Chef, Puppet, or Ansible to do it? Are you talking just specifically Osquery configs?
Generally. So putting it on the hosts is what those tools accomplish, but also connecting it into your larger infrastructure. And you might even call it post-deployment, but what do you query to achieve your goals? Given what are your goals, since not everyone has the same goals. But people it seems like people are always coming to the Slack with deployment-related things, and I wonder if that portion of the documentation is where we ought to focus. I mean, we have a lot of good docs on building and stuff, but there's probably like 10 of us that need to have those docs, and then everyone else needs the deployment stuff.
If I'm going to be cynical, this is because a lot of tools, especially security tools, get installed and then ignored.
How does that relate to the Osquery though?
Because people show up to figure out how to install it and deploy it, and they don't show up to ask what to do with it because they don't care anymore.
Oh, yeah. Or maybe they have such a hell of a time that they give up. I hope it's the first thing.
More likely is, you have some compliance objective, which is, detect so-and-so, right? So you get a big burst of energy and demands and resources to figure out tooling to detect, root logins or whatever. You get all that deployed, and then you're like, cool, that checkbox is done. And you don't usually then go on to say, what else can I do with Osquery? Surely you've seen this in your business.
So internally, we maintain this long customer FAQ about a lot of headaches people have with turning on too many queries, too many eventing-based queries. And so we provide a lot of subjective recommendations, which I think is something that, is a lot of it's our opinion. So it wouldn't be documentation per se. But maybe some of the docs could have troubleshooting your performance as a theme. I'm not saying it's not there already. But anyway, we got onto this topic because the users didn't come to the office hours, and so we're trying to recall what they've asked in Slacks.
So if I can offer one suggestion here, one idea maybe, because I just saw Zeek do it. They had like a Zeek day where the community can like submit a bunch of plugins for Zeek, and then they give away like Amazon gift cards or something like that. Maybe Osquery could do something similar, and people could submit like query pack. So the best SRE query pack, the best security query pack, right? So you start adding additional queries like Facebook did when they first released the tool. Maybe that's one way to get community involvement, and maybe
Carbon Black is doing that. I mean, on their site, they have a query exchange site, and they do have like best query awards prizes.
Yeah, I think, but you need to be a Carbon Black customer, don't you, to access that?
I think that site is, yeah,
Okay.
anybody.
You might have to register for it, but I didn't have any trouble registering a while ago, I don't think.
Okay.
It's totally open as far as I know. I mean, you probably have to register to submit. I just linked it there.
The thing about trying to hold something like a Osquery day is I don't know that we'd get enough interest in a day. So I'm curious sort of what Zeek did to build up enough momentum for a given day.
Yeah, I'm not actually sure. I know Volatility did the same thing. I know a lot of open source tools have like a day dedicated. So I'd have to look at what they did.
I mean,
Uh,
sorry.
goes to
No, just saying, in some sense, the QueryCon was one of those steps. Obviously, for other issues, we hadn't had it, but yeah, we might need to expand.
I believe the Zik days are like maybe once a couple of months. They are more often than a single conference a year.
Does anyone have a sense of like the size of the Zeek user base relative to Osquery? Size of the community?
I wouldn't know the size, but I am in the Zik Slack because we did a project for them, and they are really active. I'd say more active than Osquery, where we have more bug reports or questions about behavior rather than like tutorials or mini workshops and so on. I guess it is easier with Zik to, it is an imperative scripting language, which is probably more engaging than writing SQL queries.
Zeek is also a full framework and system, right? It has there's a command, there's a server component and an agent, so it's kind of more out of the box ready.
Yeah, so you, as far as I remember, it's a single binary that can run both as a daemon and with live traffic, or also as a command line tool with pickup files. And you can run your scripts against the traffic and do things like, I don't know, dump HTTP files or alert if there's like an SSH connection and so on.
I wonder if we've sort of mispegged our users. And I don't know, this is like total speculation, right? Like, given that OS Query is a piece of a larger ecosystem, I don't think our end users are really end users. Our end users are like companies and security teams building things with OS Query. And I wonder if that changes both how we should expect to interact with people and kind of what we should target documentation to.
I did hear of some blue team capture the flags events where they use Osquery to solve things. I wonder if we can maybe target those users and see if we can improve documentation or write more features or articles to help this field.
Yeah, I actually came up with an idea a couple of weeks back about like using something like a fleet manager and then doing like a CTF with those query where you'd have to run queries to find flags. And they get progressively harder and harder. So that might be a way to get people involved, maybe.
Sounds kind of neat. I can think of at least one person on this call who's running live queryable OS queries via a website. So it could be interesting to set up a hunt like that.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to do some more kind of educational content for Osquery, and we could totally use what I've got there on osquery.live, I think is where it is, as a basis for doing that kind of stuff. I mean, I think I look at something like for Go, the tour of Golang, where you have, it kind of steps you through interactive examples that you can run against sort of a real environment to understand how the tools work. I sort of imagine we could do similar things potentially with an OS query kind of thing, but someone just needs to take the time to do it, which I've not got to.
I think the idea of something like the Golang Tor would be really cool and probably a huge amount of effort to build.
We can sponsor it.
I'm just like, I don't even know who I would get to write that or what the platform side would look like or.
Yeah, I mean, I think the hardest part really would be if you want to be able to walk people through interesting scenarios, then you have to be able to make that Osquery instance be running somewhere that the interesting scenario is available for it to detect. And to me, that seems like the tricky part because we've already got, you know, an Osquery shell running in the browser with osquery.live. So you could write up some content. You could have it, you know, fill in some stuff in the shell for you and let people play with the shell and all of that. But really making good scenarios, I think, is going to be the huge investment of time.
I don't know, because I think I see a couple of things and they're all valuable. You know, if you think of if you think of the Golang Tor stuff, none of it's like really interesting or really hardcore Go engineering, right? It's basically just like, here's a for loop. You know, here's how you can iterate in for. Like here's these basic language things. And I think the thing that makes it so powerful is it's coupled with the Golang playground. And I could absolutely imagine trying to extend Osquery Live and documentation to be like, here's a basic select. You know, here's how you join, right? Or like, here's how you know, do any of these things. They're not necessarily a CTF hunt, but they're just really basic. And you could even imagine like a playground style thing. And I think split from that is at least what I think of when I hear what Ben described, is like a much more of a, here's a set of exercises that's like a CTF or a hunt, you know, where we've carefully set up some things and like, go nuts, have fun, try and find the answer to like question 4, right? And I feel like they may use similar Osquery Live infrastructure, but they fulfill different purposes, I think. They'd both be really cool.
Well, I mean, if anyone wants to build this kind of stuff, I'd be happy to work with you on using what I built that's already there. And maybe it's something that we could try to use. Or maybe we could hire someone as a contractor to do this and use some of the money in our account. Can't remember what that account's called.
So we have money in Community Bridge, which is probably less than it looks like, or not less than it looks like. Excuse me. It's not going to be very much.
Right.
We don't run real fundraising, so.
Right. Well, I mean, maybe I've always had the vision that you know, hopefully we'd raise enough money to hire people to do these things that will benefit the community, but that no one's necessarily motivated enough to do on their own, because you know, the Osquery community is not a company like the way that Zeek is, right? So the incentives are a little bit different. Lots of us here in this call benefit from Osquery's success, but in a little bit less of a direct way than it is with Zeek or something like that. And there are plenty of organizations, at least in theory, who say they'd like to support the Osquery project, but I think up till now, there's not really that compelling a pitch as to where their money would go. And maybe if we can make a better pitch, we can secure that funding and start doing that. I don't know.
So Philip has recently had a conversation with some tech companies' representatives to the OSSF. And that's part of like the Linux Foundation doing open source funding. But there's a gap between what to fund or who to fund and how. So they like want to invest in these things that underpin their service infrastructure, but they don't know how to get good return for investment or exactly what these projects need. So if we were to ever solicit funds, we would have a wish list of things that are like shovel-ready projects, you know, and we would describe it in detail. Like, well, if you gave us $5,000, we would do this, or like, you know, something a little more inspiring than the 4,000 issues, you know, in GitHub. Not that we have 4,000 issues, but
I think it's tricky. As Zach said, the incentives are sort of misaligned, right? Like most of us here work for companies that work with Osquery, and we all kind of get paid outside of our Osquery work, and our companies mostly donate some of our time to this. Ben, I don't know what your situation is, but I think the rest of us are in that boat. So it's kind of, I find it very hard to have like a shovel-ready project because of how my own time goes, right? Either like there's a thing I need inside Osquery and I'm just going to do it to the extent that I can, or my time goes to, you know, whatever the other things that I'm getting paid to do are.
Yeah. So one potential that I'll kind of just leave out here, this past summer, I did a workshop at DEF CON for threat hunting. I did specifically on threat hunting and APT red team exercise that I did. So we were hunting it. I did it with Sysmon, but I could easily transfer that into Osquery type stuff. And so what I found with people is that when you have this red team exercise, it provides a storyline. So it's not just random queries that you're running. There's actually like a story that you can follow, and people seem more engaged with that type of style. I know I might be able to kind of help you guys maybe provide that as an exercise or a workshop for the Osquery community. I know it's very security related, but that's what I have to offer. So I don't know if that's of interest to anyone. So
I think it sounds cool. I don't know what the right forum is, but I like if you announced it at office hours, like it would not succeed, and that would be disappointing. So I think it sounds great and want to have it succeed for whatever you do.
So, but I can talk to you guys more about that offline. That was just one of the ideas. I thought maybe we could provide that as a workshop or something.
Yeah, or in my eyes, especially in the year 2020 and the 2021 that we're about to be in soon, being able to present that kind of content in a like on-demand format online, potentially, I mean, I know I'm flocking my own stuff here again, but potentially using like the interactive shell available in osquery.live so that someone can just get right to something like that straight from their web browser and see Osquery being used within those kind of interesting scenarios. It might be helpful, or it might be a nice way to do it. Of course, that doesn't address like the major use case of Osquery, which would be like scheduling queries and acting on the results of scheduled queries.
Mm-hmm.
You could imagine having an interactive environment that had historic Osquery data that had been funneled into it.
Yeah, and for example, like the Blue Team Village CTF that's put on by the Recon security folks. Is that what they call it? Blue Team Village CTF?
Yeah,
whatever it is.
right.
You know, that one, they do have Osquery historical logs. I think they're sitting in Graylog, and they've got like a live fleet server running. So you get both the historical context and the live context. However, I think that takes a whole team of people to run that CTF, and they're there like working their butts off live, making it work. And that's obviously not sustainable for this group of folks here.
Okay. Next topic. So I got a couple topics that I wrote down here. One of them, let's do them in the other order, actually. let's talk about Apple Silicon. So Collide has been running, Collide on behalf of both Collide and Osquery has been running Osquery and the Collide launcher on the Apple developer kits for several months now through Rosetta 2. Just about when Apple went to general availability, we started seeing crashes. These crashes are, I think, only in the launcher code. They're deep inside Rosetta. Rosetta 2 and Go do not appear to be friends right now. It works sometimes, and sometimes it crashes. I'm not quite sure what else I can really say, not because it's secret, just because, like, I don't know. The things that I've seen right now are that Go calling C APIs seems more crashy than pure Go, than pure compiled Go, again, through Rosetta 2. I don't think I've seen Osquery itself run into problems. And these crashes are kind of horrific because they're actually hangs, not crashes. So it's a hang with a pegged CPU, which always makes it really hard to like detect. If it just crashed, it would just get restarted and no one would care. But these are actual process hangs with some pretty funny looking errors. They're usually, I could dig one up if anyone cared, but they're like deep out of some C++ code base that, has file names that make no sense to me. And they're things like assertion failure, return in the wrong place. And I'm like, got nothing. The Go team seems pretty involved with Apple and generally getting stuff fixed so that we have native Go on Apple Silicon. But this mostly all just smells like Go and Apple Silicon. So we're seeing issues in launcher, but I am not sure Osquery itself has seen any problems. So I don't know if other people are bumping into any M1 issues yet.
I don't think we managed to finally try out the Apple developer kit because due to COVID and offices and So yeah, I personally don't have much experience, and I don't think neither of us.
The other thing people are going to run into is that Homebrew is still a mess. So if you want to compile, if you wanted to compile Osquery, you either have to use a Rosetta toolchain, which isn't the end of the world, because like you could use Rosetta Homebrew, or you have to go through the getting Homebrew running in M1 land, which is still a bit of a mess. I was picking that up again this morning because I would love to get Osquery over, but I didn't get very far yet.
Do folks here have a sense for like how quickly organizations are moving towards Apple Silicon in their fleets?
We have started seeing a couple of laptops show up with Apple Silicon. If I had to guess, I would guess that anyone buying a laptop today stands a 30% chance of buying an Apple Silicon one. They generally sound better. Like all the reviews are positive. The battery life is great. The CPU performance is great. Probably the biggest sticking point for engineers right now is that Docker doesn't work on them. And there are some routes to solving that. Maybe.
There is also no virtualization yet software.
I think there is.
Well, emulation, you can use QEMU.
No, I think there's actual virtualization.
So I know it is supported in the hardware, but last time I checked, there was no support in software yet.
I have seen one software project go by claiming to do virtualization on M1s.
Nice.
But it wasn't Docker.
But so far, no one's observed any issues with Osquery itself, as far as these things go.
All the crashes
I mean,
I've seen
Seth,
look like Rockshire.
if you'd like to I'm certainly curious to look into what the Go issues are like. I don't have that much bandwidth to spend on it, but if you'd like to drop an issue in like the launcher repo or something, and we could discuss there, I'd be happy to do that.
I'm making a horrific face because it mostly looks like run code. It'll probably crash inside 24 hours.
Got it.
So it's hard. I'm kind of being hedgy, not because I'm trying to be secret, just because it's hard to get a good reproduce case. Like right now, what I'm doing is I just disabled all the queries that use the embedded C APIs inside the launcher database. Excuse me, inside the launcher code base, and that seems to be holding up. It still seems to crash sometimes, and I'm a little worried it's in the gRPC protocol, because that's, it's a little hard to pin down. I don't get stack traces, so all I really get is like the launcher debug logs, which then terminate in a crash.
Brutal.
Yeah. Thankfully, they're still rare, and I think we'll have a good answer on the Go side. I can build natively. I just have to use like beta Go stuff, because Go's not going to cut a release with official M1 support till February. So that's the sticking point there. Yeah, it's not as bad as I make it sound. There's still very little adoption yet, but an interesting note for all of us, I guess. I think Osquery will eventually build an M1 platform version, and I think that probably we're going to ship a universal binary instead of 2 binaries, and that this will also double our binary size. So I don't know, that's a thing to think about, of like, do we actually just want to ship universal and ARM and x86, or do we want to only ship universal? Something to chew on.
If when it loads, does it load the entire universal? Like, I'm thinking about memory footprint.
I doubt it.
Okay.
So the way you make them, right, is you take a binary for every architecture you want to do, and then you use the LIPO command to staple them together or squish them together, and then you get a new binary. You can also use the LIPO command to split them apart again.
I don't think people would object to the file system footprint so much as memory.
I think memory's fine. File system's a little rough because it also translates to network bandwidth, but okay, that's all I got on M1 stuff right now. 4.6.0. So last office hours, we thought maybe we should cut another release. I still think we should cut another release. It's always a good idea. So I went and I made a 4.7.0 milestone, and I moved everything that I didn't think anyone was touching to 4.7.0, leaving roughly, I think, a Windows bug that I didn't even look at, and the Windows users table work Mike's doing. So I would propose that when we're happy with the work Mike's doing and we merge that, we cut a 4.6.0.
Sounds good to me.
Will 4.6 include the eBPF tables?
Yeah.
Are they on master?
They're in 4.1, aren't they?
Okay.
To rephrase that, whatever's on master plus Mike's work will get cut into 4.6.0. If anything else merges, that's cool. And if anyone wants to suggest we hold the release for something, I'm happy to hear it.
So I'm sure people will find some bugs on BPF. So if there's anything you catch, we will fix it as soon as possible. One thing I know it doesn't work, which is not related to Osquery, is the execvet trace point on the latest Linux kernels is broken. It just doesn't work. And in some cases, the glibc uses this system call to start processes, which is unfortunate because we will miss the event. We didn't start working on a solution yet, but we could use kprobs just for this specific event.
You said exec C, VE?
Yes, this one.
Exactly at, yeah.
Exactly,
And
yeah,
you can
thank you.
easily reproduce this with perf or BCC BPF trace. And it's not an issue with BPF or Osquery, but with the kernel.
The BPF tables are all new tables, right? They're not replacing anything.
Yes, new tables.
And so then this bug does not impact existing functionality. It just makes the new tables less useful.
Yeah.
Great. I have no problem shipping that.
Yeah, luckily it doesn't always impact the table depending on what gypsy is doing. So it's not as bad, but we would still like to fix it.
Of course. I just mean if it doesn't break anything existing, then it's a step forward, and it's the best we can do. I assume the Linux kernel is tracking it, and we'll fix it eventually.
So I didn't open a bug report about it yet, but I ended up speaking to one of the Linux perf tools maintainer who confirmed the bug. And I will try to see if I can get some updates on this.
I have a couple of small comments on a couple of issues still open in the milestone. Well, the Windows crash one, the app crash one, which is Osquery, I think, that crashes with an AMD CPU into AWS. It was related to a Windows event. It was inside the Windows event log publisher. I had to kind of reverse the stack trace. Maybe this is a question for Alessandro, but maybe that code changed, so it might not happen anymore. So we can close it until this is seen again.
Yeah, sure.
I would be happy to just close that saying this code has been heavily refactored. Does this still happen on current?
Yeah.
Do you want me to do that? Do you want to do it?
Well, yeah, I can do it. No problem.
I'm happy to do it. You know,
I was asking. Yeah, no, I mean, I was asking if it sounded good for you all, the idea. But
okay.
Yeah.
I'm happy to play bad cop. I'm happy to let you
No,
take
no.
credit for debugging, whichever way.
No problem. I will
Okay.
close it. Right and close it. Also, yeah, sorry?
I was going to say, I was just looking at whether there was anything else on here, but
yeah, the second comment was on the packaging or deploying issue with RPM. So let me see. I put it there in the milestone mainly because it's not something. I mean, well, we could fix it. So there's a problem where the RPM package we build contains a line. The specification contains a line that it shouldn't contain. So when the RPM gets installed, tries to execute a script with a shell that should not be present at that time, etc., etc. So this is a bug coming from a recent version of CMake. So ideally, there are a couple of workarounds. The first one, the simple one, I think, is we should remember not to use CMake 3.18 or newer. Just use something below it. or to generate those RPM packages, or after generating them, there is a command where, well, I mean, you have to edit them manually and remove this line. And so currently, I recently did a PR to update our version of CMake, but I pinned it below that version for that reason. So if someone uses specifically 3.17.5, that issue should not be present.
To leave a comment next to the pin.
Sorry?
Stick a comment next to the pin.
Okay, yeah.
Otherwise, like, next time we have to update it, we'll just update it, forget, and won't notice.
Oh, I see. No, yeah. Actually, we can put some logic inside CMake itself and error out. So yeah.
I know that I'm not going to remember any of this in 3 months, and
no, sure. Well, it was just for, I was telling it just for context for this specific release, but yeah, definitely a check until this has been fixed upstream is required. Yeah.
So I think this is not a release blocker then, and we can actually probably even close this bug, because if you pin to CMake, although maybe we should leave it open until we stick a CMake check-in. So, okay, we can leave the bug around until we stick a CMake check-in, but it's probably not a release blocker because it sounds pinned. Okay, I think that was everything I had written down for office hours today. Other people may want to bring up other stuff. Okay. Anyone have any PRs they want to talk about? Oh, hey, Alessandro, do you want to finish your Chrome extensions thing before we cut 460, or?
We can probably wait, so we have more room. Actually, one thing I wanted to do was making sure that it was still building Osquery on ARM. I wanted to do this earlier, but something happened and I couldn't find the time to do it. But yeah, I will try to see if it works and maybe push a couple of fixes if it doesn't before the next release.
Okay, and then I'm just sort of skimming over the recent PRs. There is all of the 10.15 related, the macOS 10.15 stuff.
Yeah, I backburnered that just to do the Windows thing. Sharvel's been out sick, but I think he'll be back this week, and he'll help me pick up that stuff.
I hope Charvel's feeling okay, and of the two, I think the Windows bug is more important. So I concur with your judgment.
Should be done this afternoon.
Tag me, I'll re-review it.
Okay. Yeah, I think I resolved all your feedback specifically, but the UID thing, which is, I'm working on that.
Any other PRs people want to chat about?
Guess we're good. I'll put this up on YouTube.
Thank you all for your time and your efforts, and enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.